Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old climber from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to my training series, where I record most of my training and provide in-depth analysis of every session. So, we are going to be climbing at Beta Bloc in the first half of this video, and then later on we're going to be having a Kilter session at Rose Bloc, so stay tuned for that. And also, I'm going to do a bit of a program breakdown as to what we can expect with the training for the next month about. I mentioned this in the last episode. It's been a little while since we've done a training program outline. So yeah, you can stay tuned for the very end of this episode if you're interested to hear what the training is going to be. And the long story short is I've kind of gotten the psych reignited to compete and get on a really strict training program again. So yeah, we've kind of just been messing around for the past month and a bit, but now we're going to be hopping on a strict training program. I'm going to be doing double sessions every day, and it's going to be sick. It's going to be good. And we have our eyes set on the high performance competition, which is at the end of January. And this is a competition that is used to help select the Canadian team for the World Cups. So it's like a decently important event. And we're going to be training for the World Cup season, which starts in April. And so we're going to be in a bit more of like a strength phase, but we're going to try and hit a medium peak and make sure we're feeling pretty decent for the HP comp, because it's kind of important. And it's also just, it doesn't feel good to do like a hard competition while we're not in such a good shape. So yeah, this training phase will be a mix of strength phase, and then at the end we're going to make sure that we're feeling pretty decent for the event. So yeah, we are starting off with just some bouldering sessions at Beta Bloc, and I should mention that I am just coming off of a rest week, so Maddie and I made sure to force a nice rest week at the same time as each other over the holidays, just to take it easy and visit family, and that was really nice. So I had about 5 days off completely of climbing and just doing nothing and eating lots of food. So I definitely wasn't expecting to feel like I wasn't expecting to move very well today. But I actually was a bit pleasantly surprised, especially in the morning session. I found that my movement was actually quite good. Definitely my grip strength felt like a little bit dormant, and I just didn't feel very much power. But the movement skills were still there, which was quite nice. And then yeah, it's been a little while since we've climbed at Beta Bloc, maybe about a month or something, just because we've been really in a spray wall phase, and that's what I've been psyched on. So it was actually like kind of exciting when I walked into the gym and I saw a gym full of just brand new, comp style boulders that Beta Bloc is known for. I got really psyched. It has been a little while since I've been in the mode of just going into a gym full of new boulders and trying to see how many I can do. So it was fun to get to do this while having a little bit of a break from it. It felt extra fun. And yeah, I also thought it would be a good idea to go to Beta Bloc for the first day of training after rest week, because they have a really good mix of movement-based boulders. They have like lots of coordination, lots of slab, so that I can focus on these kinds of climbs during session 1. And then they of course also have powerful boulders and very physically difficult ones. So I could save those for the second session, where I'd be feeling a bit more powerful, as that's usually how it goes. Whereas if I were to go to a gym with just lots of power boulders, it would be difficult to do my first session where, I don't have much power coming back after rest week. So you'll notice like in this morning session, we're sticking to boulders like this, where we have lots of jumps and the moves aren't too physical. So it allows my body to almost warm up without gripping holds that hard. Like yes, this boulder we're trying here is like this big, crazy dyno move, but in reality, the boulder isn't actually that physically intense on my grip strength. And it's more just about the movement and understanding the flow. So this is like, these are the perfect kind of boulders to try while I'm coming back after a rest week, and make sure that I'm not risking injuring myself if I try to like grip bad holds really hard right off the bat, right after coming off of rest week. So I'm very intentional about this, and it's helped me avoid injury in the long run, especially if you take rest weeks quite often. It's important that you don't overdo it when you come back from them on your first session. So anyway, this boulder that we're trying is very, very cool. It's a crazy, like 5 or 6 move paddle. And the interesting thing about this one actually is it seems like it's just super hard, like so many moves, but actually in reality, it's kind of like only 2 moves. If you are able to do the first match and then hit the first, like the next paddle hold, like the one where we do the big dyno to, once you control that, the move is kind of over. And the last couple moves, you maybe don't even have to paddle, but it's natural feeling to kind of paddle all the way up to the juggy one. So anyway, that's always like a fun kind of paddle where it's like a 5 or 6 move paddle, but actually only the first 2 moves are important, because once you stick the middle hold, it's just very natural to control the last few. And that's kind of typical for paddles. And you know, you can't fit like 5 extremely hard moves in a paddle move like that. Otherwise it would just be too hard. But anyway, that one was really fun. And I feel like every time I've been coming to Beta Block recently, there's been like a really cool new paddle dyno, and it's been really great for me to practice on. And when I run into these sorts of moves and events, I'm usually not caught off guard because I have a lot of experience trying different sorts of dynos like that. And speaking of dynos and jumping, we have another boulder we're trying with the similar theme. And again, this is like the perfect kind of boulder for me to be trying in this sort of like warm-up session, because it's getting my body going, it's getting the blood flowing, I'm like pulling and jumping, but I'm not risking hurting my grip or my hands because I'm just pulling on a jug here. And yeah, this move is very tricky. We have to land and balance on a very slopey surface. And actually the trick with this move, notice when I jump off of the really, really big volume, it's important that I land my right foot close to the tip of this really, really big volume. And when I started focusing on this, that's when I found success. So check it out. I really intentionally jump off of the outer edge of it, and that does a really good job of propelling my momentum like closer and creating a direction coming away from the wall into the wall. Whereas if I were to hit closer to the wall, higher up on the big volume, it's going to push me out and away. So yeah, once I sort of realized that, I was able to do it in a couple tries. And I've honestly been feeling like this, a little bit of mental rust, trying to figure out these little nuances and where to step on volumes, how to swing a limb properly in a dyno. And this is because of just all of our time being focused on the spray wall, like I was saying. So it's cool to relearn these little things and retrain my brain to think comp style, because it's been so long. And like I can really feel like these parts of my brain activating that were sleeping for a bit, which is kind of cool. So we definitely have to make sure we have a lot of these comp style sessions leading up, like right before the event, so that we have all of those pathways in our brain like activated and we're ready for anything on comp day. And now we're trying another cool little tricky slab, and this one proved to be not only way harder than it looked, but also way cooler than it looked. It's kind of a silly looking boulder, of course. We have the start foot and then one other hold and then the finish hold. And this is what we call a French start, where when there's only one piece of tape like this, you can just jump one foot off of it and then the boulder is started. But yeah, this stand-up move was really, really hard. It was important to land like as high up in the pistol squat as you could so that you could just finish off the rep. And then, yeah, we are doing some more workout. We're going to bring back like the workouts. It's actually just been a while since I've done any sort of off the wall training, like our dips, pistol squats, military press, calf raises. And yeah, I've just been taking a break from these things and just been climbing. But now that we're trying to gear up for an event, It's important that we have all of these sort of antagonist muscles really strong, because I need to be able to press and mantle, and I also need to be able to do pistol squat on a slab. And then yeah, for the next month, I think as well, I'll start filming the workouts again. Just stick them in there and talk about what exercises I'm doing. And like I said, stay tuned for the end of the episode for a bit of a program breakdown, and I'll talk about exactly what sort of exercises we're going to be doing and why. And so anyway, here we are jumping into session 2 later in the day. I did the morning session around 10 a.m. and then I rested until 3 p.m. to start the next session. So anyway, check this boulder out. So this one is probably the coolest boulder in the gym, I think, that's set up right now. This one's got some really, really cool moves, and it's also just very pretty and aesthetic. And yeah, in the first session, we managed to take down just about everything in the gym, minus 2 really hard-looking boulders. So we have 2 6 circuit 3s, and they were definitely the 2 hardest looking boulders in the gym, and also the most physical looking. So definitely wasn't going to try a boulder like this in the morning session when I'm coming off of 5 days of rest and lots of turkey dinners. So I saved it for the second session, where I was feeling quite a bit stronger. And yeah, this boulder was actually deceptively hard. For one, I wasn't sure about how hard this first move would be. I ended up sticking it on my 3rd attempt, but you'll notice that I couldn't stick it again, and I was making a mistake, and I'll talk about what mistake I was making later on. So anyway, to kind of break up the flow of my negative spiral on that boulder, I wanted to go try the other boulder that we had left in the gym. And I also wanted to try this one before I started to get tired in the session, because we can tell by the looks of this one, definitely going to be needing to feel nice and fresh if I want to send a boulder like this. This thing is like a million moves long, and honestly, maybe I should be putting like a root grade on this one, because it is definitely super, super pumpy. And so with pumpy boulders, I like to do this a lot, and I talk about it a lot in our sessions. I do a quick run of the last half of the boulder. That way I already have the muscle memory, so that when I make it up there from the beginning, I'm not having to learn new moves on the fly, because that's just how you get super, super pumped, and how you probably don't end up sending the boulder, and how you ruin a session by getting pumped out of your mind, and then you can't actually try any other boulders. So this is just for training purposes. I kind of say, screw the flash go. I just want to send this one as fast as possible, while also not getting as pumped as I can. And so anyway, I did this, and it was definitely helping. But even like on these attempts here, where I'm getting only halfway up the boulder, I'm getting like really, really pumped. Like, I don't know if you can tell visually, but take that move, for example, where I just fell coming into the crimp. That move isn't too hard, and I fell on that move purely from being like super, super pumped. And, I kind of wasn't even that many moves in, but I find this also happens a lot after I come back from a rest week. I'm very susceptible to getting pumped much more easily than when I'm sort of in the groove of a training cycle and my fitness is a bit better. Like, I wasn't necessarily feeling that weak during the session. I was feeling quite good, like pretty average. But the endurance is really difficult to, it's just not very existent when I'm coming off a rest week. So I'm kind of trying this boulder knowing this, and I know that I have to kind of race against the pump. And if I want to try and snag the send of this one, it's got to be in the next couple tries, because the pump is just building and building. And actually on this send go here, as I'm making my way through the cruxy moves, I don't remember the last time I was that pumped. Like, holy cow. I was like so pumped. I had to sort of really bear down and grit my teeth as I was finishing that one off to just force my hands to full crimp those holds and not let go, even though they were so pumped. So yeah, I come to try this boulder again with just rock hard forearms, and I was actually really struggling to hold onto the start holds for a little bit. So it was nice that this one had actually the crux at the first move so that I could fall a few times and de-pump. Because if I was to try and be, getting high on this boulder, I would be just making the pump worse and worse. But anyway, yeah, like I was saying earlier, this one proved to be a lot harder than it looked. Not only because the first move proved to be quite tricky, but also this middle sequence, I totally thought, we could just come into this Gaston, throw the right toe hook over, and then just easily match the sloper. But this is like such a well-set boulder that the toe hook was too close to match the sloper, and then the further toe hook was really hard to actually get my foot out there. It felt like I just couldn't try and throw my right toe hook further, so it forces you to do this crazy dynamic double clutch move, which is so sick. Really fun move. And then of course on my last attempt, I biffed the finish, and it was also partly because that pump was coming back that was built up from the yellow boulder. So I was looking at this thing and thinking, man, I don't think I can do a physical move at the end of this boulder because of how pumped I am. So I was looking at it and I tried to see if there was something else I could do to try and fight the pump off, and I came up with an idea. So luckily enough, I had just enough energy to make it through this intense crux again, and I could give this ending another go. And I thought, okay, if I can get my left heel on the sloper, it'll take a bit of weight off my hand and I'll be able to do the last move in a less physically intense way, which worked pretty well. And even with the heel, I was like pumping out really hard on that right-hand crimp as I went for the finish. But anyway, that was a really cool session and a great way to start off this training program. Did a lot of boulders at Beta Block. And yeah, now we're going to jump into the next day of training and we're going to start off with some Kilter board. So as I am beginning my Kilter session and kind of at the tail end of my warm-up, while I'm doing some moderate boulders, I'm going to quickly give some context as to why we're doing a Kilter board session today. So it's actually been a little while since I've had like a training session on the Kilter board. We did the Kilter board video somewhat recently, maybe like a month ago. And if you're a Kilter fan and you haven't seen this video, definitely go check it out. I set 10 different boulders of 10 different grades from V1 to 10. It's a pretty fun video. But anyway, that was like, it was kind of like a vlog chill session, so I wasn't like locked in and trying to train. So anyway, it's the point is that it's fun. Today I get to have a little training session on the Kilter, which it's been maybe like, man, I can't even remember. Wait, maybe like 3 months or something? It's been a while since I've had a training session on here. But anyway, the context for why we are doing so today is over the holidays, while I was taking my rest week, I was just hanging out with a buddy of mine at the gym, and I was watching his Kilter board session. And, I'm staring at the Kilter board, and I can't help but look at holds. This often happens when I spray wall as well. And I'm kind of coming up with sequences and like looking at holds, whatever, having some fun. But then I start looking at this one sequence in particular that actually looks like it could be really cool. But it also looked like maybe it was stupid and wouldn't work. But anyway, I started like really looking at the sequence and building a boulder around it. And I like constructed a whole boulder and I thought it out really thoroughly while I was just looking at the wall and not even climbing. And anyway, I think it could potentially be like super sick. So I wanted to make sure to get on the Kilter board as soon as possible because I wanted to try this thing. So anyway, the boulder looks like it could be in the V11 range. So we definitely have to make sure that I'm feeling really strong and really warm. So that's why I'm doing quite a lot of boulders leading up to the one that I set in like the V789 range. And then, yeah, I'll jump on my boulder in a second and I'll start breaking down the moves. But it was also nice to do a Kilter session today, I think. Not only because I was just psyched on it and inspired to do so, but I'm going through a little bit of a rut with my finger strength as well. I've sort of been talking about this in the recent training series videos. But ever since like that crimpy boulder at Pan Am's that I wasn't able to do, I definitely feel like my crimp strength is a little bit weak. And I think it's just because I've been neglecting my hangboard. And as we hangboard more frequently, I think it's going to come back. And so the Kilter session also will help target my fingers a bit and get them stronger. But anyway, check this out. This is the boulder that I set, and this is going to be like one of my first few attempts on it. I had a couple other testing tries off camera, but check out this ending sequence. So this is like a really cool sequence, I think, where we are ending up underclinging these two pinches, and we have to go up with our left hand to the second last pinch, and then do a big shoulder buster move to the finish hold. So long story short, I think this sequence like super goes and is not too hard, but the cooler part of this boulder is in the beginning and the middle, and I wanted to establish a much more doable boulder using the cool sequence. And so basically I just made the ending easier, is the long story short. I took out that really cool sequence where we have to kind of recycle back into some underclings in order to go up left hand to the second last hold. And so this version that we're working on here is basically going to be the starter variation of this boulder. So instead of like going up left hand to the second last pinch, with this new way, we end up going right hand to it and then just going left hand to the finish hold. And I'll save the harder version for another time. But anyway, let's start breaking down this boulder. So the main theme of this one is starting off as like a right hand undercling on this first pinch, rosing underneath to the next pinch, and then having to reverse your right hand so that it's backwards, so that you can do like a backwards, crowd-facing rose bump again to another pinch. And then there's a really cool move where you have to fall down into this slopey circle. So anyway, this was like the main sequence and the main theme of this boulder that I thought would potentially be like really cool and wanted to build around. So this move coming down to the ball is definitely feeling like the crux move. And yeah, like thankfully I tweaked this ending to be easier, as you can see. Now we just kind of do a couple pretty easy moves to finish off the boulder. But when you're pumped from doing the start of the boulder, you can definitely drop the ending, or like at least fall going to the second last pinch. But anyway, you'll notice that the start is kind of strange. Like I'm grabbing this little foot chip with my left hand, and it's like barely even a start hold. And this is simply to help try and force this rose move. I had a couple other variations of the start while I was just watching my buddy climb on the Kilter board and like trying to make up a boulder at the same time. But this seems to be like the most foolproof way, I think, of forcing this beginning sequence. I was really trying to come up with a way to break the boulder and not do like this sequence that I wanted, but I couldn't find one. The only way I think you maybe don't have to do this crazy rose move is if from this position, you do a crazy dynamic hand flip and switch your hands around. But basically, I think that would be harder than doing this sequence. So I'm okay if someone wants to do it like that. But anyway, check this out. You see how the app just changed on the right of your screen. So this tweak is like the last little tweak I made to really unlock this boulder. All I do is add a lower foot, as you can see, and it makes the move coming into the circle sloper quite a bit easier. And like I said, I really wanted to establish like a pretty doable version of this boulder so that more people can come try it. And I don't want to just have this sitting as like a project. So yeah, this way is much more doable. And then, like I said, we have a harder version of it to do potentially. But anyway, I had this session just listed down as a 45-minute session, and I'm slowly approaching that time limit. So I was actually feeling a little bit of pressure. I wanted to bring this boulder alive and like finish it off. So I end up trying really hard, and I'm able to finally send this thing. But it was actually quite close, especially on that second last move. I don't think it looked too hard when I did it, but I was getting properly pumped by the end of that one. And yeah, I think that boulder was super sick, and I'm proud of what I was able to make up with that one. And then as you can see, we're looking at here with this version of the boulder. This is like the project that I'm also going to leave up on the app. So that's with the original ending of the boulder, which, like I said, I think is super, super possible. But the power endurance required to do that ending sequence after the beginning, I think is going to be super legit. So what I'll do is I'll leave that as a project that maybe I'll revisit from time to time. And maybe on like a strong feeling day, I'll jump on the Kilter board and see if I can finish that off. But I think the full version could be like really, really cool, because you have to recycle back into another undercling. But anyway, we'll talk about that more when we revisit the boulder. And so, like I was talking about earlier, it is important that I get back on the hangboard grind. So the past like 2 to 3 months have actually been really shaky with hangboard for me. I just have been skipping it a lot, taking rest weeks and like doing like a couple hangboard sessions, but then something will get interrupted or something, or I'd have to go compete. And so it's been a while since I've done like a nice consistent week after week after week of uninterrupted hangboard sessions. And I think this is important. So yeah, I'm doing my hangboard here at home. And for those who haven't seen the setup, this sort of contraption that my hangboard is attached to in my doorway is made by a brand called Clevo Climbing. This is the Clevo doorway. And if you're interested in finding a home hangboard setup for yourself, we have a discount code in the description. And yeah, I've just attached like a Beastmaker to this setup, and it's super nice. And I love doing my hangboard at home. It means I can go home earlier rather than staying at the gym to do hangboard. So I'm gonna try and keep this program breakdown pretty brief, and I think it should be because there's not too much to talk about. But the biggest theme actually with this training going forward, well, first I'll mention that it's about a month long we're looking at here. Like basically we're looking at the month of January, and this is leading up to the high performance competition like I've mentioned. So we got about 3 weeks of training. And yeah, the biggest theme actually, as you can see, is it's kind of looking bare, like I haven't written a lot of things. And I'm gonna do something that I do from time to time, and usually this will just kind of depend on my headspace. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually not gonna write out my training. And this sounds kind of weird at first, but I do kind of have a very general understanding of what this cycle is gonna be. And I know the gist of the training. It's gonna be about 50% bouldering. Like you can see on day 1, we had 2 bouldering sessions, and then it's gonna be like 25% board training or, spray wall or campusing. And then hangboard will always live in this session, day 2, session 2. So basically the reason that I'm not writing it out is I'm gonna do this sort of training still. Like I'm gonna, like, let's say, like, let's take these 2 days, for example. It will probably be boulder, spray wall, campus, something like this, and then hangboard. And then, this workout here will also kind of live in the same spot. On day 1, we'll always do calf races and side splits like we did in this episode. And then day 2, after session 1, we'll always do dips, pistol squats, and military press. And like these sessions will also be present, like boulder, kilter, hangs, but the order might change. So like maybe I'll do kilter board or spray wall here, and then maybe do a boulder session here, and then maybe do the other boulder session here, but I'll still do hangboard here. And I also might, like, depending on, what the gym sets are looking like, depending on what my psych level is, if I feel like I need a little bit more board or campus training, I might do a day where I do boulder, campus, kilter board, and then hangs. So the idea is to kind of do generally like half boulder training, a quarter spray wall training, and then a quarter hangboard training. And then of course you add like these strength exercises on top of what I just mentioned. So I kind of, like I said, I understand what the training program will be, but I'm not going to write it out specifically. And the reason for this is this kind of gives me like a different perspective on what the training month is going to be. It's a little bit more fluid. I can do things that I'm psyched on in the moment while still, conforming to the general gist of the program that I have in my head. And what this does is it makes me feel less of like a robot. And I feel like a little bit more freedom, and I get a little bit more enjoyment and satisfaction from the training. And I think this is important, and it's always good to just mix it up too from time to time. But, my motivation was kind of shaky after Pan Am's. And so this is just a nice, healthy way to reintroduce the strict training program, because the training that we're going to be doing is quite strict. Like, it's going to be the same rigorous double session training that we're used to when we're preparing for the comp season. And like, it's the exact same thing as what I would do. The only difference is I'm not writing it out, and I'm going to allow myself to make it up a little bit more as I go. And yeah, it's just for mental game, longevity stuff. So anyway, I think it should be fun, and it will be cool to highlight this this style of writing a training program. But of course, as you can tell, what I did do is I wrote out all the days, because that's sort of important to get the general gist of like what days I'm going to be training, when my rest days are. This blue section here is like a content day, so I'll go and film content. And I also have like a general idea of how the tapering will look like. And then usually what I'll do is, like, on a rest day, I will go write the specific training for the next chunk. So like, let's say I'm on here Friday, January 3rd, and I'm resting. I'll take this opportunity to write out these 2 days of training. So I have, like, you know, the exact plan for what I'm going to do in the next 2 days. And that way I can make sure that the training is also balanced. But anyway, yeah, that's like the gist of the training program. I'm psyched to really start grinding it out again and prepare for some comps on the horizon. The first one being the high performance competition. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and I will see you in the next one.